rocking into the new year and another fantastic Monday right here with 3D Politics. I've got all three Davids, the Davids that matter, David Van, David Oldham, and David D'Ambroso. 3D Politics, you can catch me, Tom E. McKay, right there on Twitter. And we're going to talk a lot today. We're going to talk about the impeachment trial, of course. Superbowl ads, we're going to talk about those a little bit.
Good.
The governor Stitt, something about a Medicaid block.
Yes.
I have a story about Kendra Horn takes a teacher to work day, and another vaccine update, a story from Oldham, and a special promotion that we're going to talk about right before that governor story. But what do you think about that impeachment trial? Anybody?
Is it still going on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Well, it's basically over. They're
Yeah, I haven't been following it for months.
Pretty good stuff.
My real question is, when does the next impeachment effort start? What's the next one?
It's already started.
The real question in the real trial of the next impeachment is how badly does Nancy Pelosi want to further harm the franchise of the Democrat Party? Because they had to drag her along on this one.
Yeah.
You know, I think she's going to say, you know what, enough of this. We've got re-election coming up in November.
Did you hear or see my post that I put up where Nancy Pelosi's own constituents are upset with her? They're calling her a sellout, a liar, things like that. And it was...
Well, these things are true, but why are they calling her that?
In this particular case, it was several reasons, but they were upset about... I'm trying to remember what they had. I had
She
to
didn't go
look
far
real
enough?
Yeah, it was something to do with...
She didn't John Wilkes Booth
I
Trump?
don't, actually, at the moment, I don't remember, but it was not being Democrat enough.
Fair. That's right.
Remember when Schiff said this? He read the manifesto of the Democratic Party, and he said, "A specter is haunting the Senate, the specter of communism. All the powers of old Europe have entered into a holy alliance to exorcise this specter. Adam Schiff, Gerald Nadler, Val Demings, Jason Crow, Sylvia Garcia, Hakeem Jeffries, Zoe Lofgren, social radicals, and deep state police spies."
Who said that?
Adam Schiff.
Adam,
It's a facsimile of what he said.
I think this is going to go
Put it
down.
with Tom's spin.
Tom, this is going to go down the history books as an abuse of congressional powers.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to hurt the institution of Congress long term.
As a professional troll, I watched all the comments going by on the Fox feed, and I got to say, the electorate's very informed, and it was probably 3,000 to 1 pro-Trump comments.
That's Fox.
You watched all of that?
I watched too much of it, yeah.
You know what? I used to have that problem, and then I got a life.
Well, I'm just trying to keep up with you, Dave.
Well,
I'm running about as long on impeachment time as I am on Super Bowl time.
You cannot, you cannot test a government until it's under assault or decay. And this is what's going on. Our system process is being assaulted. I learned so much from Philbin. This guy's brilliant. Did you see the lawyer Philbin?
Yes, yes.
One of the things that I didn't know was that the Senate has a higher level of oath than the House. They have to swear to impartiality, where the oath in the House is lower.
Or
I thought you
Maroney,
might
if
have
you're
a
going
to in this particular case, yes, but that's it. They have to, and it's a special oath they take just for the impeachment.
Yeah, and does anybody keep their oath? That's my question.
Yeah.
Well, God knows whether you keep your oath or not. So, I think that's what comes into play.
Yeah, but that doesn't do us any good with government when government runs amok.
It's
You'll get your oversight when they're
amazing
dead.
how much God's leading on these senators seem to follow party lines, though. It's amazing how God just chooses to lead all the Democrats one way and all the Republicans, except for Mitt, of course.
Most of the time when I hear people talking about God's will, it strangely benefits that person who is speaking of God's will. It's very odd. I've not figured this out yet.
And I'll say this, as a former licensed minister, when it says, thou shalt not take the name of thy Lord thy God in vain, that's done more from the pulpit from those in the pews. Because it's the person who says, "Thus saith the Lord," when the Lord has not spoken.
I don't think they ever take the name of special interest groups in vain.
So, it's just, to me, it's a lot of hypocrisy. this was all about politics from the beginning to the end.
But I thought it was brilliant the way the Founding Father system works. It slowed down the fight. We're not killing each other.
Well, it was interesting today
mostly.
to go on to what Dave was saying was how many times the Democrats today, the Democrat House managers, invoked the name of God. Mentioned the judge from Texas. She got up there and talked about since she was a little girl and going to church and
she went to church with the Founding Fathers. Yes, what I understand.
And no, that was Inhofe who said who was it is 10-minute speech afterwards. They went back into regular session to have their time. And he talked about all the different impeachments, and he put Johnson into the modern impeachment.
He was there.
But
he's a real paleo, like us.
Yes, he looked like he probably was around then.
It bears repeating again what I said a few weeks ago. I'm surprised how constitutional all these Democrats have become. I just can't figure out which constitution.
And how they quote Republicans and how they quote the founders, and they misuse the quotes constantly, but the
children will look it up.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is why I say I just can't figure out which constitution they're referring to.
Constitution of their own self-interest, right?
Yeah.
Self-aggrandization.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and how they talk so much about it being selfless and not self-aggrandizing and for all these motives, when in reality everything they're about is just the opposite.
Well, it reminds me, it's very convenient. It's like everyone wants to say God's on their side. Just these Democrats, don't you Photoshop? Good meme idea. The Gott mit uns on the belt is the belt on every SS soldier, right? God is with us.
Oh.
You know, and so that's just what everybody invokes God.
Tom, I want to ask our viewers to put in the comments there what they think the final vote count's going to be on this. Now, it takes, 68 senators to convict, I think?
2/3.
So they're going to get to about 49.
67 would be enough. Are they even going to get 50?
Yeah, maybe 50.
I don't know, because
for conviction,
I think they top out at 50.
Well, maybe that would mean they would have to get somebody other than Collins and Romney.
The talk is that Democrat from West Virginia, Manchin, may not vote to convict.
Well, see, that's going the other direction. So we're not even talking. And if you got Romney and Collins to swing for conviction, you're not even at 50. You're at 49.
Right.
So then you get Manchin going the other way. You're only 48. So the question is there anybody else that is thinking of, and I haven't heard of it.
Yeah. Because I'll gladly trade Manchin for Romney. I'm there.
To all my friends in Utah, we told you so.
Yes.
and some of you did know better. Yes, you did.
I was amazed at how consistently the Democrats would refer to our system as a democracy, where they love the mob rule.
Well, and that's both of them. Both. It's gotten so overused that people's heads have just accepted that we're a democracy. And in a sense, we are. In one form of the word, we are. But in truth, we are not a democracy.
Constitutional republic with democratic functions, like voting.
With some democratic
and
functions.
I think the key thing in being a republic is that you have minority rights. And that's the essential thing here, that you can't just on a 50+1 vote whatever you want.
That can't be right, because then the Democrats would support that if it's about minority rights.
Yeah, wouldn't it be?
The thing that I was most appalled at,
as long as you could vote for it.
the assault, the attempt by Schiff particularly to concentrate power in the hands of the single judge. He sounding like Satan asking Jesus to throw himself from the pinnacle. He was telling the Senate and the judge, you have the power within you to do this. And what they wanted him to do was concentrate the power of our government instead of separating It was insidious, only seconded by Garcia asking for the president to prove his innocence.
Right.
Garcia.
The judge, and this was what was so amazing with so many of these people who were on the House managers are lawyers. They of all people should know better that we have a Fourth and Fifth Amendment right protection to not self-incriminate.
Yeah, but
their whole point was that if
wait a minute, you're asking lawyers to be ethical. Keep that in mind.
Hey.
So we should ask Garcia to prove that she's not a communist, prove that she's not engaged in subversive activities against the United States.
I asked him to prove that Eric Chiamella wasn't the whistleblower. Show me the proof. And did you notice his last name starts with the letter CIA?
Ooh. Does Alex Jones know that yet?
Did you know that the Twin Towers in New York were 11 unless you woke up and you were laying down, then they were an equal sign?
Oh.
That's the problem with numerology.
Please.
It's a joke I want to tell, but I can't tell.
I really can't.
Yeah.
I think it was also a message from the ruling class. What they're doing to Donald Trump right now is a message from the ruling class. If they can do this to Trump, they can do this to anybody. They don't want any private sector business coming in here again.
Well, it's so funny. This is what's happening to private citizens.
In here again.
Well, it's so funny. This is what's happening to private citizens everywhere. And so we really have a president that can understand our plight. I mean, this is exactly what's happening to me. Right, like Rick Hubbard, right?
Right.
Tim Harper. They're saying, prove that you're innocent. We're going to hold your property. We're going to hold your land. We're going to take away your rights until you can prove that you didn't do anything.
You weren't here, but the Bowles family that we talked about the other week,
Right.
Who literally their child was taken by DHS, and a judge gave the order to take the children because they would not talk to DHS. That was their cause for grave concern and inability to get to a resolution, or a cause for extreme concern.
These people need to be fired at a minimum.
Yes. And much worse than that, because think about all of the crimes that have come from the kidnapping of the child. Literally, it's kidnapping. And it's just done under color of law, but there's nothing lawful about it.
Yeah. Letting your 11-year-old, what is this, van?
Yeah.
It was just right here in Tulsa.
Yeah.
What happened?
Was that in North Tulsa? Or?
Oh, well, there's a number of cases. It depends which part of town you're in. If the DA thinks it's a dangerous part of town, the mom and dad go to jail. But if it's in the nice part of town with the fancy, mansions.
Depends on how good of a job he's doing in that part of town. Whether you go to jail for his incompetence.
Yeah, the problem's not our neighborhood; it's that other neighborhood on the other side of town.
Well, nobody's above the law unless you're kidnapping the kids for the state, and then then it's legal.
Unless you're making up the rules,
Well, I got to get that Title IV.
Well, anyway, we're talking impeachment here. I want to say, I think this is just going to fizzle out. What I am looking for Trump to do after the vote's done is to go ahead and give a full pardon to a number of people, including
Flynn, maybe.
Ian Stone, Roger Stone, and Flynn. I want this all behind us. This was a hatchet job. Now, listen, if you got other things like he cheated on taxes, like, what's his name, the personal lawyer who turned on him, and even his old campaign manager, the guy was involved in other things.
Yeah, if you find out you got proof, you got the video of Trump ripping off his mattress tag,
No.
Democrats, bring that next time.
I have to say, if none of this would have happened. It was the campaign manager, Manafort. He would have never been convicted if he hadn't been Trump's campaign manager. I get that.
Sure.
But you know what? Eventually you're going to become somebody big one day, and they're going to look into your past. And this is why you don't cheat 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
So that's...
The investigation into Biden would only be valuable if Biden is dirty. And my contention was that Schiff admits then, by his statements about studying corruption in Ukraine, he admits it's going to be Biden.
Yes, you could write textbooks on this. This is a case study in influence, human decision-making, and bias.
Yeah, I can guarantee you there's going to be some, I'll call it dark money, I'll call it PAC money or whatever, some Republican interests are probably going to fund an investigation in Ukraine. And we're going to find out just exactly what the Biden kid was involved in.
You mentioned something about the elites, and you're absolutely right, Tom. What this is, it's saying you cannot investigate Democrats. This is what happens when you even
Yes.
ask the question
Yes.
if a Democrat committed a crime. Oh, forget that Hunter Biden has been kicked out of the Navy, that he's a major cokehead, that he has illegitimate children. Forget all about that, and I'm not saying, this man's personal character indicates that he's committed a crime or not, but forget that he has no experience in oil and gas. He's making $83,000 a year. Forget that he's on the corporate board
or a month.
Yeah, $83,000 a month, over $1 million a year. Forget that John Kerry's son works for the same board. No engineering background, no finance background, no knowledge. They don't even speak Ukrainian or Russian, to my knowledge. And Nancy Pelosi's son. What a coincidence! You've got here an order of a magnitude more evidence than what is being brought against this president.
Henry
All of a sudden,
Kissinger said,
Democrats
I want to
commit
channel my inner Henry. Henry Kissinger said to Rush Limbaugh, the first time Rush Limbaugh moved to New York and got invited to one of the hobnob parties there at William F. Buckley's house.
Right.
And Henry Kissinger says, the problem with the Democrats is they accuse you of everything they're doing.
Yeah.
And
It
that's
is
exactly what
exactly
you're
the
saying.
technique,
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
Trump started on the scent of the trail going after Biden's past. And so what'd they do? They accused him of what Biden was doing.
Biden is on film saying, Biden, what's your source on this? Biden. Joe Biden is my
Right.
source on Joe Biden's potential crimes.
Yeah.
He said, I fired that prosecutor. I made a phone call to Ukraine. Within 24 hours, I said, this $1 billion in aid up in the air, and Vice President of the United States, if you don't fire that prosecutor, that's looking into my son.
A persuasive speech professor at OSU teaches that as or used to teach it as a technique, literally as one of the techniques.
Right. Well, to sum up the impeachment, if the Democrats had evidence of crime, of an actual crime, and actual evidence that what he was doing had no ulterior motive, and the only motive was criminal in nature somehow.
Well, like I said, it's a case study in bias. If you're willing to assume maybe 5 or 10 negative things about Trump that you can't prove,
Right.
yes, perhaps he committed a crime. But if you look at on the face of what the Democrats have done, here's the crime by the same standard they're trying to accuse Trump. An absolute standard of quid pro quo with Joe Biden, and only the speculation built on a house of cards, speculation after speculation after speculation, all of which have to be true, none of which they can prove for Trump to be guilty.
Well, and they're trying to prove a motive. They're trying to convict on motive, not on what he did, but on motive.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you can't prove motive. It has to be confessed, and nobody has come up with a confession or firsthand evidence.
But
or
everybody
anything.
feels like they know the other guy's motive,
Okay.
so that's all they need to do.
Hey,
if
let's
you're a
tune
Democrat.
everybody back in. Our
Yeah.
viewers, if you're watching and just tuning in, Tom McKay here with all three Davids. Sooner Politics, David Van. We've got Constitutional Grounds with David Oldham. And, of course, David D'Ambroso. Find him on Facebook. Catch me at Tom E. McKay on Twitter. We're talking about the impeachment, and I still have a lot to say about the impeachment. I think this episode in history is as important as the moonshot in the 60s. I think this is defining us as a culture in that same way. I think it's funny for them to say that Trump is going to cheat. First of all, how far off is it for this to benefit him? First of all, he'd have to do the investigation, find dirt on Biden, and then that dirt would have to be significant enough to change people's minds in the voting. But it's like there are miles and miles
Well,
away.
remember, the original claim was that he wanted them to make it up, which has never been demonstrated to have been said.
Well, they keep moving the goalposts, and we talk about it all the time in this program. The facts don't matter. The Democrats have an agenda. They have a goal. That is all that matters. So the law, the Constitution, what was actually said, if anything even looks like it's... But none of that matters. They just don't like this guy, and really that's why they've impeached... They've impeached the president.
I got to clarify a point. Blake Barber makes a comment about Flynn actually withdrew his guilty plea. Now, I'm going to go back to history. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon even when Nixon had not been formally indicted, much less had any trial. So a president has the power to pardon somebody preemptively in a blanket pardon for anything having to do with any particular matter.
And it's so funny, and I love this, and if facts mattered, all right, we would have a really great moment of introspection in this country and finding our soul, because Democrats are now talking about the Constitution with such warm feelings that they never ever do in 99.9% of all circumstances. And so one thing that has been brought up in the media a lot is boy, this guy, the President of the United States, sure has a lot of power. Is it really a good idea that this one man's got a pen and a phone? He's got a pen and a phone.
I thought Philbin did an excellent job of explaining why our system moved away from parliamentary process, where the leader is held accountable by the to the whims of the parliament, whereas we have a sole executive that has a lot more power.
Right.
Well,
Unitary executive.
Actually, he was supposed to not have as near as much power as he does today.
Well, what's happened over the last 250 years?
Well, the problem is that the Congress has not done their job, and the state legislatures likewise. What they do is they delegate way too much legislative power to the executive to create rules and this and that and the other thing.
I'm going to do a little shock jock. Okay. George Washington was our 16th president. Okay, you thought it was Abe Lincoln, it was George Washington. The reason I say this is because we had a different constitution before 1789. It was our Articles of Confederation. And in that, we were a lot more like England in that we had the equivalent of Parliament. And the person who was called president was the president of the Congress.
Correct.
And so Nancy Pelosi's position today, back in the previous Constitution, maybe that's the Constitution she was referring to, she would have been the
Constitution is whatever she can find. Maybe it's the wrapper on her vodka bottle.
Yeah, but it just didn't work to keep the cohesion of the 13 states, especially when you're looking at common defense. Because we were dealing with piracy going on quite a bit. We didn't really have the ability to create a navy, and so that's the first thing. Before we even created a standing army, we created a navy.
Yeah, well, that didn't happen until 1803.
Well, again, you had to get
as
to
our
that
viewers know.
Because the land forces were up to each state to provide. It was the state militia.
Correct.
Our military was largely state militias at the founding of the country.
So bringing it back to the Trump thing, one of the things I find interesting is like
I was enjoying my rabbit trail.
I still want to say something.
Tom.
The Trump administration is so well advanced in their abilities that even though Zoe Lofgren has been there for 20 years and was involved in the Clinton impeachment, several of them were, Schumer as well, Trump has been able, according to the Democrats, to cheat his way in to the 2016, cheat all around. He's so clever, he's able to outwit these people that have been there for 40 years. And he can just swim circles around them in 3 years.
They think that Trump is so stupid, yet they never recognize the irony of how stupid must they be if these really dumb guys defeated them.
If he's that good of a cheater, I mean, let's give the guy a chance.
Is this not deja vu all over again? Because didn't they say these exact same things for the most part about GW and Reagan?
They don't have new tricks because why make new tricks when these are so effective? This is the first conservative they've not been able to destroy this. They called, you know where this whole calling a conservative a Nazi thing began, as far as I can tell? You guys should know. You guys were alive back then. Barry Goldwater, 1964. They start every Republican candidate for president has been called a Nazi, a National Socialist by the Democrats and leftists in this country since Jewish candidate Barry Goldwater for president.
Right. And really what you've got here is they've tried everything from being a lightweight, Bush 41, to a doofus, Bush 43, who had a master's degree from Harvard, speaking of doofuses, right? And all that. It didn't work with Trump to call him a doofus.
Student.
Well, but the point has been
He's a pilot. You have to be pretty smart not to crash that plane.
I'm sure you would do better at Harvard.
That's what they said.
I know.
Actually, I would bet on Oldham over Bush at Harvard. I'm sorry.
I would be happy to be a C student at Harvard.
Really.
I'd be happy to pay tuition anywhere at the time when these guys attended Harvard. You pay for the part-time job in the summer,
What else we got, Tom?
Well, the point was made that the reason they can't tear Trump down is because they didn't make him. They've made all these other guys. And so he's a self-made man. He has his own board game.
Excellent
You can't
point.
fight a guy like that.
Very good point.
I think history's going to treat this, though. Schiff will be to Trump what David Chapman was to Lenin. There's an asterisk, next to his name. There'll be Trump, and then there's a little asterisk, and then, Schiff,
If Chapman had missed like 18,
Yeah.
he's going to be, I think, more like who's the crazy guy, the Bernie bro that shot up Congressman Scalise in the Republican baseball game.
Yeah.
He's going to be more like that guy that fired 60 rounds and only hit one dude once.
My dream is that tomorrow, when John Roberts, Chief Justice, is there, Schiff says something so bad that John Roberts hits the gavel and says, "Sir, have you no sense of decency?" Make him into the new Joe McCarthy.
And
To me,
remember,
that would be the best thing to happen.
Roberts is not a
actually,
conservative ideologue.
Just so everybody knows, tomorrow they're in regular business. It's just the senators talking. They don't go back in and have the managers there until Wednesday.
Well,
But
there we go.
tomorrow night is the State of the Union.
Yeah.
And
That's going to be awesome.
that I want to see how the president comes out, because I have a feeling he's not gonna hold much back. Just
Really?
knowing his style.
Think so?
And that will be kind of fun to see how he handles this overhanging.
I think he might focus
situation.
more on the wage growth being the highest
Yeah.
in American history among the lower middle classes.
Imagine if the vote had been tomorrow afternoon ahead of the CE.
Well, I think that was part of the agreement.
Yeah, I'm kind of
because
shocked.
they made that agreement to just get it done with, but it'll carry over until Wednesday. They
Yeah.
want it hanging over his head.
Yeah, but Trump can play it either way.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point.
And I love Joe Biden's statements that recently surfaced about him for the Clinton impeachment, saying, "Oh, there's no reason to call witnesses."
Yes.
Right.
Hey, one other thing that's happening, Trump's approval ratings are just going sky high.
Yeah, they
He had a rally, was it last week in New Hampshire, where there was several times as many people outside watching the rally on big screens.
I mean, this is historic. I can't wait.
in New Jersey.
I cannot wait to vote for a president
Sitting on their
who's
mounds of
under
trash.
indictment of impeachment. It's historic. It's awesome. And I want to go see him on his post-tour of duty 2025. The Trump Tour 2025.
I have friends that are liberals that were amazed that Trump was in Oklahoma City for the state fair just when he was a candidate. I mean, the guy is a dynamo.
Tom,
No,
I
we are- Yeah, go ahead.
Well, since we're talking about this, let me just invite anybody in Tulsa. Apparently, we're going to be meeting at Hooligans. Don't know the address, but Hooligans at 6:30. And
What kind of message does that sound?
Hooligans? What
Hooligans.
day?
Who's
we?
we?
tomorrow it's going to be
When?
Hooligans Unite!
Looks like the Tulsa Republican Men's Club and some other friends are
Okay.
going to be getting there. So we'll call it a 3D get together if you want to come join
Oh,
us.
okay, how about that?
We run your group now, Tulsa Republicans Men's Group. That's it.
But I mean, it's a friend of mine and I were talking about it. She wanted to go do something else, and then we were
Okay.
talking, and so she put it
So,
together
allowed to
for
go
us.
to
so
the
it's
men's
just a gathering of Trump supporters, right?
Well, a gathering of
We're going to watch the show too?
people who are interested in politics, many of whom will be Trump supporters.
Okay.
Is it a bar?
Hooligans is a bar and grill.
Okay, so do you have to leave your gun in the car or not? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, I would expect
Okay.
you have to leave your gun in the car.
Your choice. You need to get the
Well, you-
financial ledger first.
Well, you can bring it
51%
in. We
the
just
rule.
can't guarantee you'll not spend the night in the clink.
Right, and keep your gun.
Practice your concealment, guys.
And how bipartisan is it?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
But when you have it at a bar, it could be very. This could get fun because if
Sure.
they turn up the TV and other people
What kind
are
of
watching,
drinking
you
games
can
will there be? Like scouts
Okay.
for Nancy Pelosi?
We got a lot of topics here. Where do we go?
Nancy Pelosi?
We got a lot of topics here. Where do we go?
He's thinking of editing.
That's a 2-hour night.
If you're with us and just joining us, Tom McKay here with all three Davids, 3D Politics, every Monday at 7 p.m. We're going to talk about the Superbowl ads, right? We're going to touch them a little bit. Next week, we hope to have some video. We're still trying to upgrade to have video sequences to go with
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah,
but
you
so,
can see the studio.
I want to hear that from the viewers. Which two or three stuck out in your mind? Put it down in the comments there, those who are watching us live tonight on Facebook.
Better yet,
was.
ads.
The ads.
better
Super
yet,
Bowl
post
ads.
the link so I can see them for the first time.
I tell you, there were some great ones. The best story for me was based right here in Tulsa.
Yeah, what was that? I
that
saw
was
the headline, but I
Kia
didn't
Motors.
catch that one.
And it didn't have much to do with why you should buy a Kia vehicle. But it was almost kind of the Nike kind of thing of give it your all. And it's a story of a young kid from a very struggling family, single parent, dad raising 5 kids, and they're homeless for much of it.
Was it 5 kids?
5 kids.
5 kids.
And I tell you what, we posted up on 3D Politics the backstory. Key also did a short documentary on the family.
Yes.
And the young man played football at McLean.
Yes.
And then went on, got a scholarship at
true story?
Alabama. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
At
Right here in Tulsa.
Alabama. Was drafted in the first round last year.
Wow.
His rookie year, he was named the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year this year.
Wow.
Yep.
Josh Jacobs. And you know what he did last month? He came home and bought his dad a house.
I thought you were going to say Kia.
No.
Well,
Fine.
they spent some of his childhood homeless
Yeah. A good part of
and
it.
sleeping in the family car.
And on good
and-
nights when they could afford, they got a cheap hotel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was just a wonderful story about how a family can have hard times, and a dad who, quite frankly, didn't have much time for work because he was raising 5 kids, and even when they went to school, he had to find a way to make some money and get them by, and then make sure that they were off to being
You just
kids
talk to
and
Brian
raising.
Hobbs. That guy has 10 kids, and he's very busy with work.
And I want to say this, Tom.
Well, there's
Honestly.
also.
Other situations.
There are men of great character like Marty Jacobs, the father here. There are men of character like him in every ethnicity, in every socioeconomic class, in every locality of this city.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, there are some incredible people, and we need to honor fathers like that because they make such a difference. To hear his son, Josh, talk about the most important person in his life is his dad.
Wow.
Because his dad gave his all.
I'm amazed that I'm hearing about this from a national Superbowl ad instead of from local.
Exactly.
Is it promoted locally?
No, and I'll tell you why not, Tom. Because I've worked with families who've been in these kind of situations.
Oh, you
And
have to
for
stay under the radar.
Exactly. Oldham and I were
Absolutely.
talking in the prep tonight about this, is that, sometimes the Child Protective Services or DHS and this stuff are actually the enemies of families like this.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, sometimes. No, but also you have to keep them you have to keep everything normal to the schools as well. Partly for the child's sake. Partly,
Explain
it's
what you
all
mean,
for
Nolan.
it's all for the
Normal.
child's sake. But you have to keep the appearance of normalcy. So in other words, nobody knows about your homelessness. Nobody knows that you don't have a regular abode. You go to school every day. You show up. You're clean. You're dressed. You're fed. The whole 9 yards. All of that is taken care of. You show up as any other
You
child.
can blend in really well in today's school environment. I knew a kid who both his parents were brain surgeons, and he didn't bathe. He wore the same shirt and like a mangy tie and combat boots every day. You would think he was homeless.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I said this last week, and it bears repeating again. Last week we were talking about kids with special needs, and because of those special needs, those developmental disabilities, people will report on those families because they think it's because of a bad home that this kid's got autism or whatever. And I'm saying, prominent people in this town, if I mention their names, you know them.
Right.
But I have been allowed in that inner circle at times. And if you are ever so honored to be invited in that inner circle and you see those struggles, you ask, how can I help you? Not, where can I report on you?
Right.
Because I'm telling you, those kids, they may not have much, but they know they got a mother or father or both who will give their dying breath for those children. And that's something that foster care can't give those kids.
And you stop and think about like in Jacob's case, Josh Jacob's case, what if some do-gooder decided it was time to break the family apart because, Dad can't really be taking care of them up to the standard of the do-gooder or whatever. Would that have allowed for the son to be able to flourish the way he did? And I believe, quite frankly, given at least the promo that they have said and the things that I have read about the father, I believe all the rest of the kids are pretty successful as well. Yes, the one is really successful in sports, but I don't believe that any of the kids wouldn't be fairly well rounded.
Well, I would say it probably wouldn't be because the dad didn't give his all for the kids.
Correct. That's what I mean.
Every kid's got their own trajectory.
Of course.
Some are high, some low, some are
Of course.
But again, yeah, that's the thing. I'll say this: my kids turned out way better than I deserve. They just did. And, but I'm biased.
Smart, articulate, well off. How are they even related to Van?
5 versions of perfect.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. The foster kids, and I appreciate us having foster care. I appreciate that we have some means so that kids don't die in the streets.
But the biological
like in
parents
the Oliver Twist days,
Right.
where you have the urchins. I appreciate us having something like that. But when you've got an agency that has quotas of how many families they got to break up to keep getting their funding,
There's
that's
a certain amount of I don't know why she swallowed the fly that goes on because they have a problem and they go in to fix it, and that doesn't exactly work, so they send in another one.
Yeah.
And then they end up compounding the problem, and I don't know why she swallowed the fly.
Yeah.
I think she's gonna die.
The problem is
that's literally
when you have people making $500 million websites that don't work, telling you how to run your life,
yeah.
that right, you just pause there.
Yeah.
Wait. When you have people letting our heroes die in the VA in waiting queues, and then they want to bring that same health care to every single American.
Yeah.
And you don't pause, and they don't pause to ask themselves, can I really do this?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat what I said again last week, because we're talking about developmental disability. Now we're talking poverty, but still the same thing applies. My former neighbors who lived in the cul-de-sac, and I found out they worked for DHS.
Oh yeah.
And, this woman it was her job. She was high up. It was her job to decide when families deserve to get their kids
She was
back.
the decider.
Now, mind you, she didn't have any kids of her own.
Wow.
No,
But she was an expert.
Why would that be a qualification?
And what did I say? I used to be a much better parent before I had kids.
Wait,
There you go.
do you need to know anything about healthcare in order to rewrite laws governing all of healthcare? I mean, that's never a prerequisite. Experience in government, no. You just need to have an experience in your own opinion.
Blake Barber says nobody wants to hear about good dads.
Well, you see a fatherless society, that's the society of the left, the society of urban America. That's what fatherlessness
Oh, I
is.
thought he was talking about Van.
Well, there were a couple.
I take it I'm a good
Yeah,
dad.
you're a good dad. You can't. Dad, you can't help it.
pull
What are
this
you gonna
back
do?
into the
Remember the Super
whole
Bowl ads?
Super Bowl ads.
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was I think my favorite ad. But there were a couple that I found so distasteful that I will never buy Pop-Tarts. Not that I would in the first place.
Why are you...
What was the
or
Pop-Tarts?
Sabra hummus.
Yeah.
I will not buy it anymore.
Oh, their hummus is delicious. What happened?
Male homosexual perversion and transvestitism.
Okay.
Openly
hummus.
on the.
What does it have to do with hummus,
sell
guys?
That was all about.
Is there something I don't know about
it
hummus?
was-
Hummus, both us?
You know what? It's better that you missed the Super Bowl.
It really was. It was
Dear
disgusting.
God.
But
Make my own hummus.
I-
Your own
They do
garbanzo beans.
specifically.
I found it so distasteful that
Yeah.
I will not buy those products anymore.
No,
So-
Take a bite out of crime.
alter ad, the opposite of the Sabra hummus and the Pop-Tarts, was the Snickers commercial.
No, that was other than the idolatry to the earth. That was great. It was a fabulous commercial.
Wow, we run a tight ship around here.
Yeah, Snickers knew exactly what to
Are
do.
you guys upset about all the debauchery you saw in your Roman Colosseum games?
Exactly.
Pretty
What,
much.
Okay.
What was that? So the hummus, both of commercial was the homosexuals, and out of still don't know what they did that was homosexual, but they were clearly, obviously that. But then what was the other commercial you didn't like? The
Pop-Tarts.
And what did they do?
Just a guy who was acting all gay.
Well, he was acting the stereotypical gay.
Yeah, the flamer.
Not like most of the gays that I
don't
do
believe.
know,
I don't
you know,
believe for
but
one second that gay people
was-
eat Pop-Tarts. They make far too much
No,
money.
it was
No.
it was jumping the shark. You know, it was
Over the
really
top.
over the top.
And it was weird because there's no need to go there. Just put two people up that can sell your thing. But they had to go there with it, and it's like, okay, so I'm just getting something shoved down my throat all of a sudden, and I didn't even want. I don't. The only reason I watched is because we were going to talk about this.
and
I don't even hummus. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. And I do want to say, now here I'm quoting Rush Limbaugh again, but I remember back in the 90s, he said, the homosexual rights movement, had their biggest setback every year is the Gay Pride Parade.
Right.
Because
Treat us normal.
Right, because they
They're walking
parade the
people down the
biggest
street.
extremes, the people who just want lots of attention.
Right.
And they're celebrating their homosexuality in extreme, that it gives America
Yeah, why can't-
really a much different view of homosexuality than the people we work with and live near.
Why can't you be just a
every day?
respectable homosexual person that just keeps that private, like Jeb Bush or Mitt Romney? Nobody even knows.
Yeah, and that was George W. Bush was asked that. Bush 41. They said, "Would you hire a homosexual person to work in your administration?"
He's like, yeah, how would I even know?
Exactly. That's what he said. How
Well,
would I know?
if people keep it where it belongs and aren't doing sexual
In the streets.
Well, no, what is it? The sexual harassment. Because usually you find out because somebody's actually committing sexual harassment by their standards.
Right, but
And-
like Tom, if you want to go to your workplace and not talk about family, they can't make you talk about your family or you or any of us.
right.
But if we want to talk about our family, our lifestyle, our culture, then we're putting it out there for people to react.
And I
to.
keep mentioning it's like, who shows up at the water cooler at work and like Monday morning, like, so Tom, what kind of sexual stuff are you into in the bedroom?
I was
What
gonna
did you and the
make
old
this-
lady
I was
do this
gonna make
weekend?
the point. I can
What is the
imagine-
deal?
yeah, I was going to say, imagine the heterosexual parade where we're slamming it to the babe, slow motion on the float, going by the judges. I mean, what do you literally?
Yeah.
We don't act like that.
So
it's not. It's,
yeah, so the Pop-Tarts thing, I think they really screwed up big time. Really screwed up, and I think
they've overplayed their hand.
Sabra, but
Well, the Sabra put up
Right.
a couple guys that looked like they were the guys that go out to the libraries and do the reading time.
Oh, the
they
drag
were
queen
so
square.
the drag queen
Yeah.
overdone.
Liberals don't care if your
And-
18-year-olds
but,
can
you
read,
know-
but they want your 5-year-olds to know
Right.
LGBTQ 1, 2, 3.
How
It's
to dress.
really, where Snickers just said, okay, enough of this culture wars. Let's just stop and eat a candy bar, okay? No.
This is a delicious candy
actually,
bar.
actually,
If
what
you're
was
in
so
the candy
great
bar
about
business,
You can do whatever you want before or after you eat this candy bar. Whatever you want, man.
What was so great about the Snickers was they talked about all the stuff that we talk about
Yeah.
all the time, and they mentioned just about everything, all the problem, the strife of the world, and domestic
Yeah, it's great script.
problems and everything. And then their solution was to
Snickers.
dig a big hole and give the earth a Snickers bar
because it's trying to find itself right now.
It needs to be sated.
And then a couple people try to
when
take
do their selfie,
do
they fall
something, they fall
backwards.
back in, and the other guy.
It just showed all of our extremes in our. I want to say there was another candy bar commercial that was just hilarious. I'm not supposed to like it, but I do. It was the Reese's Take 5. All these strips, and they end up with a guy waddling through the office with his head up his butt.
I couldn't do that. It was just too cheap every time. It was
Now
it was too
But
angry
other-
for me. Yeah.
Well, that was
the
the
other
point,
one.
though.
Now,
Yeah,
the other
you're
one
right.
I like, and it's a boomer favorite, okay? Because you know you're a boomer.
the
You
Super
like it.
Boomer?
Was the Groundhog Day 2.0. Bill Murray comes back for an encore of Groundhog Day, the movie.
But
I
this
did
time,
see that on
but
YouTube.
this time He likes Groundhog Day.
Because he's driving a Jeep.
On that one, I have to say, that one
Jeep.
gets my award for the winner because you know how far in advance that they had to know what date
Yeah.
the Super Bowl was going to be on, that it was going to be on Groundhog Day, that they needed
Yeah.
to schedule Bill Murray
Oh,
to
right.
do all their pre-production.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
were
yeah.
way ahead of the curve on
Right.
their date.
Oh,
they
yeah.
probably knew this
Oh,
5
yeah.
years ago.
And they
Or
got several of the
at
old
least,
cast.
at least.
Several of the old cast came back for it.
What
Oh yeah,
they
Ned.
Yeah.
Ned came
I
back.
I
think
know,
they dubbed that in.
Yeah.
That's a great dichotomy between
I
private
don't know.
sector and public sector planning, right?
Yeah.
Like
Wish
they
Andy
had this
McDowell
in
had been
advance,
there, but
and you
she
tend
wasn't,
to
you
when
know.
you got $1 million.
But you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and it was a funny thing because the stereotypical scene was always Bill Murray waking up in that little bed and breakfast, and oh God, I'm back here.
Right.
And this one is yippee, and he
Yeah,
jumps
way
out.
to go. It's a really nice twist. I think it was the best one there. There was a nice reference with the hammer time.
Yes.
Can't touch this.
Oh, now that was.
That
I
was
like
clever.
that. That was one of mine that I
simple.
liked.
I love the social commentary because Murray's in the Jeep Gladiator for the American Gladiatorial Games.
Oh, okay. I did not get that connection.
Well, let us know
That's
what-
why you're here.
Let us know which ones you like.
Yeah, we want to hear your top three. That you got mine. Those were mine. You pretty much the
Right there.
same.
The
Links.
Jason Momoa, is that his name? That was
Jason
Aquaman.
Momoa was pretty
simple
funny.
CGI, nice and shocking. Cut across both cultures because your strong guy could like it, and by the time he's the thin little guy, everybody likes it.
Yeah, the Sam Elliott westerns. It was pretty good. Was it Usher in one of them? Was it?
Oh, Sam Elliott? You mean the Sam Elliott one? Or which
There's
one?
Sam Elliott, and there
with
was
the
a couple
cowboy
of different
guy.
Western
That
ones.
was cute. It was a little,
that
was
little
weird.
gay for me, but
Okay.
but the one, what was the one where they stole Alex Rodriguez steals Jennifer Lopez's drink?
Yeah, that was weird.
That was one.
Yeah,
it was
it was
like
just
that was a
weird.
$12 billion inside joke. I mean,
Yeah, it was
what,
weird.
what a waste of
Yeah.
time.
So anyway, yeah, there's some duds, but there were some good ones.
And
but
that,
you know,
that weird
tough crowd though
Mountain
here.
Dew one, the horror flick thing.
yeah.
That was weird. That was just. Whoa.
Now, what
Well,
about the? I thought the one that was well angled. Of course, in today's world, we have the cartoon world. You know, we have normal shows for
Oh, yeah.
adults. that are
South
cartoons.
Park Reigns, man.
So I think it's Morty or something. Morty and something.
Yeah.
See the Pringles cartoon?
Yep.
Okay, now
Oh,
that was
right.
really well placed for their ad,
Yeah.
for their market, because
I'm not
Pringles
smart
are
enough to get Rick and
Pringles
Morty.
are
You know what?
not real potato chips.
And here's the thing, though. You had to be familiar with the cartoon.
You had to
in order
know
for
that.
to
Oh,
be
yeah,
for their
That's
market.
it.
They,
And that's
they
why I
nailed it.
said with Bill Murray, for us boomer generation, that probably meant more than for,
Come on, everyone's seen
What?
Groundhog's Day. Come on.
okay.
But
I mean,
he's a culturally transcendent. I mean,
Yeah.
Bill
Yes,
Murray
you're
is
right,
really
right.
big.
And
in
it is a
millions.
classic.
And
Yeah.
Groundhog Day's become a
But
thing.
see, Morty did not have what
Sure.
Bill Murray has. That's what I'm getting at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
didn't
even know
get
about
that.
Rick and Morty, really.
Yeah,
I just know that
I
I'm not
just
smart enough to
recognized
watch
that
it.
that was one of
Is
those
that what it
shows.
was? Yeah, I just did not get that
Because-
Pringles thing other than just what it
What
said.
happened
I'm
in the
like,
commercial?
whatever.
A lot
These
of nothing.
Okay.
Pringle robots in the style of the animation break into the kitchen and take over everything.
Just
It's
an association.
real
thing.
oppressive, like
Yeah.
militaristic
Yeah.
Pringles.
An oppressive commercial, yes.
All right.
Really bizarre. All right, Tom McKay here, 3D Politics, every Monday night at 7. Bizarre. All right, Tom McKay here, 3D Politics, every Monday night at 7 p.m. Facebook Live right here. I've got all three Davids, the Davids that matter, David D'Ambroso, David Van, and David Oldham. I'm Tommy McKay, and we're going to move on to a story from Sooner Politics. January 30th, Governor Stitt seeks Medicaid block grant instead of expansion. Current formulas only give Oklahoma about 62% reimbursement, while states with expanded Medicaid enjoy better than 90%. Got a couple of quotes from Charles McCall and then one from McIntyre, but tell us about the story.
Well, yeah. We were wondering what the governor is going to do, and I think you were with me when I was talking to Congressman Hearn a couple of times
Right.
this last year about, is there anything the feds can do to be a game changer? Because we've got a liberal group that's getting a lot of support for passing a constitutional amendment in Oklahoma that's going to make it mandated in our Constitution to provide, free health care for
Yeah,
just about, everybody.
It's another one of those illegal constitutional amendments that
Right.
is completely
So-
unenforceable.
Yeah. Now, my thing, and my talking to legislators last year, is why don't we, if you're going to do that, go back to the old Insure Oklahoma that was before Obamacare. that had a sliding scale. They were using federal money. They were using, there was some state money. There was some TSET money. But Obama killed that. He said, no, Oklahoma, you can't do that program anymore. We're withdrawing our funding for that because I want you all to move over to my new insurance.
After all, Obama was a healthcare expert.
Yeah, don't you know? So anyway, so Trump said, you know what? I want to do this. I want to give states latitude again.
Right.
I'm going to just block grant money and let you guys get creative. Now, we've had Indiana done a plan. Utah did a plan, but actually the federal government said, no, you really changed it too much. So Utah's got an issue. But I thought, the way I saw it, this block grant, okay, good. We're avoiding the Medicaid expansion, that term that was used as part of Obamacare, that package that was mandated by Obamacare. Right. While they couldn't mandate it, but yet they tried to. So it is, yes, Jonathan Smalls of OCPA and I had a talk with this Saturday. We were texting back and forth in a group. He says, it's not Obamacare Medicaid expansion, but believe me, it's Medicaid expansion. Yeah. And no, he said, this is not Insure Oklahoma, because under Insure Oklahoma, that sliding scale, you literally paid some money.
Well, what could be wrong going from 62% to 90% reimbursement?
And that's
where's the rub?
Exactly. You're getting right on what the problem is. How do we stop that program? Because all the other states are getting this federal
free money is good money.
And Oklahoma's not. And for the selfish, motivated person. Right.
Free money.
And this is a hard
free money, Oldham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We're
rich. Okay.
Rich.
So the way it works out, because we only get 62% reimbursement, but across the border, next state over gets 90%.
How can we compete?
Listen, they get to buy a Cadillac Escalade for less out of pocket than we buy a Dodge Caravan for.
That's because there's equal protection of the laws.
Yeah. So this is a problem. Now, by doing this, I don't know. It really comes down to, I want to see what the facts are in Stitt's rollout. And the legislature is going to probably have a full debate on this. And we'll see if he even has support to pass it. But if it doesn't pass, then we got an even bigger fight to stop this expansion Medicaid that's by the ballot.
Are you saying you want more information until you make a
they
judgment?
they got the signatures, so it will be on the ballot, or have they gotten the signatures?
A ballot date hasn't been set.
But have they gotten the signatures?
I believe yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So my problem here is not a philosophical one, because I'm with you on this. The government, you know what? Pay your own bills, doggone it. You know. But people are selfish. People say, well, it's free money.
Let's just not categorize everyone as selfish. Many people are simply self-interested.
Okay.
That is not
I'll take that.
selfishness.
Yeah.
Well, except
Okay.
when their self-interest goes into violating their neighbors by
Okay.
That's
using
no
force of
longer
government.
self-interest. That's
The
a
only
crime.
people who can really fix this is our Congress. It's the only ones who
No,
can.
actually, I disagree with
Horn?
that. I disagree with that. No, this is the point of that we have every single legislator, every single governor who allows for these things to continue and doesn't use the power of the state to nullify and interpose for us between Oklahomans and the federal government.
Well,
violate their oath of office,
okay.
because their oath of office is in part to the U.S. Constitution, and there is nothing lawful about any of these programs.
Okay.
Medicaid is completely
Okay, I
unlawful.
got
when
your
the
point.
feds
Now,
come in.
so you're saying challenge it in the courts.
More than that,
What?
just declare that we don't have to pay so much on our federal income
You're
tax.
talking about
Okay.
nullification,
Okay.
9th and 10th Amendment challenges, or what?
Absolutely. Well, a 10th Amendment challenge, absolutely.
Okay, so now you're going to say, you're basically going to declare us a sanctuary state.
Absolutely.
You can't do that. There's no precedent for that anywhere.
Okay.
Nowhere, ever.
It hasn't been done once.
There's
Yeah.
no precedent again.
Yeah. So it is a
That's how I
challenge
decide what's
because if you say no to this, if everything goes the way it is now, you're going to keep paying same taxes that the folks in Kansas
Okay,
do.
now,
only they get to drive Escalades, and we're
here's
stuck in it.
here's the question for Oklahomans. Do we want 100% of our money to use the way we want to spend it? And quite frankly, even the state doesn't have the authority to take your property from you without due process of law, without just compensation. The Fifth Amendment expressly prohibits just taxation for whatever. Okay, it has to be something to protect our individual rights. Otherwise, they don't just
You have a right to health care, though, Oldham.
well, that's what some people would say,
Bernie said so.
but
Bernie said so.
you don't have a right if it imposes on somebody else. If it has to come from somebody else, and you have to steal it from them in effect, then you don't have that right. So yes, you do have a right to health care, but only if you can pay for it, and only if you can acquire it.
Okay, so it would take an insurrection, essentially.
Well, hey, what do we have?
All of Oldham's ideas taken into
Well, stop and think about it. Actually, no, the insurrection happened by the start of these things. I'm
not saying they didn't start it.
I'm only talking about a stoppage, a return to proper governance, and that's all I'm saying is restoring justice.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, when we get 100% of our money, that all of that money isn't stolen and taken, and 40% of it held back, that doesn't even come back, because 62%, 38% gets held back and gets wasted somewhere else. Then already we're talking better, and we can run the program.
But let's
cheaper
talk
than they
brass
can.
tacks, though. What is the functional outcome that most of the folks will experience that maybe don't even care about political analysis if we move to the proposed 90% reimbursement from 62%? What are they going to see in terms of their benefits? What are they going to see in terms of their taxes?
You will see your federal tax bill rise
By $374 million from Oklahoma, but these other states have an option, right? If they're not net payers into the federal system, right? You're saying we're going to be paying for their health care as well.
Okay, your health privacy is going to be screwed because the state's paying for it. They have all your medical records. They know what doctors would.
Well, they're sworn to confidentiality.
Yeah, right.
They would never violate that.
Right.
Well, they can't. There's a law, right?
Yeah, it's a rule, David. Something crazy.
And remember, that rule was set up so that they can actually more easily share your information between each other.
In a higher philosophical realm about, there's only two things wrong with Nazis, okay? And that is that it's socialism and that it's nationalized. And this is one of the problems with, we have the same problem in the school system. We start trying to say teachers in another state get paid more than the teachers in our state when you're comparing apples to oranges. Other states do not make the same money that we make in the same industries, and the way that they set up their budgets are totally different, so the money comes in the front end or the back end, and these averages don't calculate out because they're not applicable across state lines because they're different functions. So Romney Care, which was the model in Massachusetts, quote unquote, kind of worked within that small system of one state because the state is sovereign. And they can make up all their danged rules and do it any way they want within that sovereign
Actually,
state.
that's incorrect.
Well, what I'm saying is they
to an extent.
You had to know that response was coming.
Well, because they're not sovereign. They're only sovereign over
they
certain
act
things.
sovereign in the healthcare industry to force healthcare to work in socialized manner in the state. When we take it across state lines, that's why these arguments about how people in another state get 90% doesn't even matter, because 62% doesn't calculate out to 92% because it's not even the same thing you're calculating.
Well, actually, it is the same thing because
you're trying to nationalize the socialism, which is my point. They're trying to make every state equal, one size fits all.
Well,
right.
I'm going to criticize Stitt on this, and this was part of his campaign deal. I want to make Oklahoma a top 10 state. Means I want to keep comparing us to other states.
Yeah,
and we got to get away from that.
Every state is beautiful in its own way, Governor.
That's going to come back. I'm telling you, that's going to come back to bite. It just will.
Well, it will. And
You know what I heard? Matt Pinnell just got some kudos today from Stitt. In his
Yeah, what
Kansas
happened?
State.
What
He
happened?
says our website is probably has more traffic than any other state website from tourism. And he says, I'm going to give that credit to Matt Pinnell. Pinnell is really pushing tourism.
Yeah,
And that, but here's the thing. Oklahoma doesn't have the Grand Canyon, but you know what? We got Turner Falls, and they don't have that in Arizona.
Yeah, and
You
Brian
know?
Hobbs and Matt Pinnell got a Netflix series to shoot
Yeah.
in Newkirk.
Right. So
Did they?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Shooting
you were
now.
up there this weekend, weren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of watching the Super Bowl, we were shooting 1,300 yards. So, you know, who's the real American?
Quarter mile.
Did anybody kneel or anything?
No,
Is
that
there
was-
enough gay stuff for you guys?
Actually, they didn't show it. So
Yeah.
Not
they
this
don't.
time.
They don't
But
show
darn.
those things
Anyway, what else do we got, Tom? We gotta wrap this.
I teased that I would read these quotes on to finish off this Medicaid block grant. House Speaker Charles McCall out of Atoka, Republican, said this is a far better plan than putting Obamacare in the Constitution with no flexibility. Our caucus appreciates Governor Stitt's strong leadership working with the Trump administration to bring federal dollars back to Oklahoma. We will promptly discuss the governor's plan as a caucus and seek input from the entire legislature upon session convening next week. You can tell it sounds like he knows it's a patch. It's not fixing anything. It's patching something.
Well,
It sounds like to me.
I'll
He's
agree with him.
very skilled
Despite what
Well, at
Holden
least
might
he's like
say, I think, yes, it's not as bad as
what-
the Obamacare program coming
They're
down.
fixing
There
it,
is
they're patching
some
up.
latitude, and by your reason is that might actually make it worse, is that a compromise sometimes you'll stick with instead of overthrowing it for being
Well, and you
Well-
get the efficiency at the laboratory democracy level of 50 states, right? They get to dictate. Sort of like what you're talking about, Romney Karen. As an aside, isn't it interesting that they're having problems in Utah now with healthcare? And I think isn't Senator Romney, is he senator from
Well,
Utah?
no, their legislature did a block grant thing, but they changed it up quite a bit, and the federal government said, no, you aren't in the parameters that we can fund.
But they
So
already
now they're-
started spending.
So they got to scratch it. And then Indiana, HIP, a Healthy Indiana plan. They rolled this out. In fact, Jonathan Smalls told me, he says, what Stitt is going to try to do is much like Indiana. So if you want to study this, look at Indiana. But
That guy's a
Indiana
policy expert, small.
just passed this thing that says, if you're healthy, adult, you got to at least work part-time if you want to be getting these handouts. And they're being sued now in federal courts over that. So now there's an injunction. They have to keep those people on
Shocker.
rolls, even though they're not working.
And again, none of this is legal. None of this is lawful because every single bit of it is taken from illegally gotten gain. And so the point is, it would work, and we would not have any of these problems if it was all voluntary.
Let me elaborate on when you say not legal, you're speaking constitutional law.
Yes.
Gotcha.
If
Okay.
it's not constitutional, it's not lawful.
David, just to be clear, how many articles of clothing is the emperor wearing?
There we go.
Just to finalize this, Representative Markin McIntyre, representative, who's a Republican out of Duncan, at
Yep.
first blush, he says, of seeing this plan, I'm optimistic. It does increase access to care and captures our tax dollars and brings them back home.
Yep.
It also gives the state unprecedented flexibility in designing, administering Medicaid without raising taxes on Oklahoma citizens or raiding dollars from other core areas of service.
So yeah, it's other people's money. Now I will remind you of your words a few, probably a couple months ago. I was talking about the hotel tax, and you said no, that's actually the right kind because it's other people paying the tax.
Well, no. There is.
Customers pay taxes.
It's
Dave.
yes. It's not a problem that they are collecting tax, and we should be collecting tax from as many people that aren't us as we can.
Status.
But the taxes collected and the money they are spent on, it's the money that they are spent on that is most important.
Within legal purview. This is what you're saying.
Yes, well, in other words, I fundamentally disagree with funding abortion. I fundamentally disagree with giving to people who don't deserve it for one
Why
reason
does
or
your
another.
opinion matter here, David?
Because
Yeah, good question.
Good question. What is my opinion, man? You guys have the same opinions, I am sure. They may be for different reasons, but you have the same likes and dislikes. The point is that in a free society, you are not free if you don't get to choose.
Yeah.
And other people are making the choice. And remember that we don't. There's not, our property is not up for
But what I
for
want
a
to say,
majority vote.
the reason I was tying this in is you said, okay, this was a tax that was going to fund big conventions and events such as the Bassmaster Classic.
Yeah.
And it was going to
You
be
can
coming
forget.
from hotel tax.
Still-
And you said, no, that kind of tax.
Not the what they're spending it
Right.
for, but the collection of it
Okay.
is
And
fine.
the tie that I'm making is this is federal money coming into Oklahoma.
That federal
without
money was
reason.
illegally taken in
There
the
you
first
go.
place.
Yeah, I was just trying to
No
make
blood
the
money
best
for Oldham.
pitch I could.
Hey, the 10th Amendment is clear. Where does the federal government have any authority to be delving into healthcare and dictating?
We've
to
been
us?
losing the republic for decades and decades and decades on these judicial rulings, and the judiciary is by far
Okay.
the most powerful.
Well,
branch
that's
of
where we need to
Confession time,
start
Tom.
talking about replacing.
I'm one of those the sky is falling people who from way back in the 80s and 90s, I said deficit spending is going to destroy this country and we're on a trajectory to go bankrupt by 2010.
You
And
know,
we are spending way more than we were then, and we're still,
where's
it's
that right now,
10 years
right?
later. Yeah, we're way beyond it.
You're not wrong, but it is interesting. Someone much smarter than me will figure this out. But the money is an abstraction, essentially. It doesn't exist. The
Yeah,
debt exists in numbers that are many times more than all of the money in the world
Yeah,
in circulation.
right.
Correct.
It's
Yeah,
digitized.
it just-
ones and
I
zeros.
don't-
It's
the
fiat
thing
money.
is,
It's made up.
When you've got a Fed that's just printing money like mad,
Correct.
and and
They're
then
drunk.
we're trying to sell our treasury bills, and China's buying it up. And I like how Huckabee said it back in '08. He said the stimulus spending that Bush came up with. He says, well, we're borrowing from China to give it to our citizens so they can buy Chinese goods with it. He says, it sounds like it's something
Chinese
to
works
benefit
program.
China.
Yeah.
It's benefiting China.
Yeah, the Tricoms have been
Okay, Tom.
holding us
Well,
over a barrel.
I'm going to tie everybody back in. We're going to go a little bit long. There's a lot to talk about with that impeachment trial. Tom McKay here with 3D Politics.
Tricoms have been
Okay, Tom.
holding us over a barrel.
I'm going to tie everybody back in. We're going to go a little bit long. There's a lot to talk about with that impeachment trial. Tom McKay here with 3D Politics every Monday at 7 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. We got all three Davids, David Van, David Oldham, David D'Ambroso right here with me on 3D Politics. And I want to move to the story of the U.S. Representative Kendra Horn. She wrote a point of view piece, Why I'm Taking a Teacher to the State of the Union. I call it Take a Teacher to Work Day for Kendra Horn. But I want to tie in what we were talking about because we are broke. By definition, we don't have any money. By definition, we're creating money,
Yeah.
but we are in debt.
We have more debt than any other nation.
Okay, so now what that means is we don't have money that isn't owed to someone else.
Right.
Which means there's a lien on our money.
Yeah.
Now, if you are going to quote unquote do what they say, invest, then you can't invest with somebody else's money unless they're going to tell you what's going to be on the menu.
Well, we also
So-
have far more wealth than any other nation.
And yet,
That's what the debt is
still,
predicated
wealth
upon.
wealth is only.
Our wealth is actually many times
how
more
are you
than the
calculating
debt.
wealth? Currency created,
Privately owned assets.
GDP is a currency. There's nothing static about that. But Representative Kendra Horn is. She said, speaking as the granddaughter of a librarian, which you know how that gets
When's
you.
the last time she's represented an
You're
American?
just saying that you know how it is. You know how you are, ladies, if you're the granddaughter of a librarian. I mean, you love the smell of books.
You know
Unless
how
you
I
hated
hate.
your grandmother, and then you probably hate the smell of books. But I mean, you know how it is when you're the granddaughter of a librarian. She knows how all this stuff in the public school. And then she wants to teach these children, young children, in this the tools they'll need in this increasingly global economy. Now, here's one of the problems I have. It is a global economy. They will need to learn economics, and you should start teaching them global economics, I don't know, in high school probably. But the whole idea of pre-K, all the way through probably 6th grade. They're not going to be needing to learn these global skills of market economics. How about teach the 4th graders to read at the 4th grade level? How about just teach them basic civics so that the House of Representatives won't run roughshod over the Constitution?
Well, how will we fit in Drag Queen Story
How
Hour for teaching the
will
kids
we
this?
fit in Drag Queen Story?
How,
That's a
Tom?
good question. Well, we'll have to change quickly in our costume.
We'll have the drag queens
Could they teach economics?
teach world economics.
I told you how to
Economic
fix
literacy.
that is you get the NHRA to bring in their drag queens.
Yep.
So she says, educate, this again from the point of view piece from Kendra Horn, U.S. Representative, but remember that this impeachment trial was brought by the House of Representatives. And let's understand how important all House races matter. Okay, it doesn't matter if you are in their district or not. It matters who's in the House. Have you seen some of these people that speak from the House? Poor Miss Demings, she can't say documents. It's documents. Then what happened was, and the documents.
What does she know
Of
about
course
LGBTQ?
But they laugh at us on CNN. Supposedly we're stupid, and I'm
Right.
telling you, you can't get a map without words on it.
Right.
Anyway, she wants to invest. Education is one of the best investments we can make in our future. Now, we don't have any money to invest because we're in debt.
Yep.
And when she says we want to invest the money that's coming in,
That means
that's
raise
not our
taxes.
money. No, even if it does, what I'm saying is the person who pays for the pizza orders the pizza. The
There you
person
go.
who pays for the education decides what's in the education. And Kendra Horn wants to invest China money, essentially, because that's what we owe most of our money. She wants to take the money that is really China's, it's got a Chinese lean on it, and use their money, technically, to buy an education for our kids, which means
China's paying for it.
China's paying for it, which means they'll say what's in the
Well, they're
kids'
paying
deal.
for a large portion of it, but the vast majority of the money owed is to the Fed.
Yeah.
It's
Foreign owned. Yeah, that's kind of
owe
one of the
themselves.
misnomers.
Yeah,
They
they're
overspent the
buying
debt.
their own.
So
TV
this is
bills.
a full court press by Kendra Horn for the teachers union. She's
Yeah.
going to take Jenna Nelson. Lucky Jenna
exactly
Nelson
it.
is the guest for the President's State of the Union. Jenna is the winner of the 2020 Teacher of the Year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, there was no school tax money spent to give
What
a
is
great
Jenna's
party.
last name?
Jenna Nelson. She's the
Nelson.
Teacher of the Year. I'm sure she's a great teacher. She's the guest.
What a cynical and ineffectual ploy by
Yeah,
It's
Kendra Horn.
such a pathetic
pandering.
and trite pandering. But
Yeah.
Jenna is an 8th grade composition and enhancement teacher at Deer Creek Middle School. What does an enhancement teacher do?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with LGBTQ ideology, but
No,
Okay.
I'm not. I'm just asking. I mean, I know what I'm assuming that 8th grade composition means English type
English composition,
stuff, but an
right.
enhancement teacher, does anybody out there know what an enhancement teacher is? 'Cause
Please let us know.
I'll be
Yes.
trying to find out. But she says,
I don't
Work
know.
on that, Blake.
Now,
I
here's
need your
the
help.
problem. Kendra Horn is promoting this. Not only does Kendra Horn love the teacher's walkout, where the teachers just abandon the parents and the children. Okay, but Jenna, the teacher, says often that public education saved my life. Now, here is where a good person, Jenna, and we're promoting her loving feeling that she gets into making public schools focused on the wrong thing. Go to the emergency room if you need your life saved. I know what she means. I'm not denying what she means. But we're taking what she means and turning the public schools into the warehouse to fix everybody's life.
Right.
And that is literally not what we're doing. While Jenna, get this line. They get it both ways. Kendra Horn says, while Jenna is exceptional, she's also no exception. Oh, really? She's up and down.
what does that even mean?
That means nothing. That's like a dry desert, a wet ocean,
Well,
climate change. We got to
yeah.
stop man-made global rotation.
But public education saved this woman's life. We
How can
need
you
to
argue
have-
with that?
We
Actually,
need to have,
she saved it.
Tom, we're going to have altar calls at the metal detectors entry of every public school.
Now,
That's right.
look at how Oldham's always talking about how government force is used to harm people, and here it is. Teachers in Oklahoma, Kendra Horn talking about teachers, are forced, that's her word, to take a second job.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
well, that's not. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
What you mean is she feels the need to get a second revenue stream. Do you know what I'm hearing from the corporate execs that are hiring and firing all the millennials? They're not looking to stay with your stupid corporation for 20 years. They're looking for a second revenue stream. That's what we do today.
Right.
So this idea that some poor Oklahoma teacher who's so lucky she's riding to the president's party and she's forced to take a second job.
Right.
That's just not true. She's not forced.
You know what? They got 4 months of the year off when you count it all up. Yeah.
That's
why not
even,
get
you know,
Most
even
of them
the-
have a second revenue stream.
Sure.
In the summertime,
Anyway.
they
So
do stuff.
there are Oklahoma teachers, she says, who can't afford to pay back their student debt.
Well, she wants
How about that?
She's upset that a 4-month vacation doesn't allow her to live in the lifestyle to which she's been accustomed. So she takes a summer job.
Now,
It's more like
she-
it's more like 3.5 months.
So
to be
who
fair.
controls? Here she is.
Can you not exaggerate?
She is a member of the Congress. She's literally in one of the ruling class. Who controls the debt for student loan? The government. The government controls the debt. You can't.
No.
Oh yeah, you don't buy.
Well,
when was the last time?
it is
How
now.
many student
It is
loans
now.
do you have in your name now, David? None.
And never have.
And I
David hasn't been
over
to
a
school.
reason.
I've got
David's a
three-
Republican.
I got 3 student loans going right now
Yeah.
that my name is on. Okay, and the problem is you used to be able to bargain with a bank to borrow money between a bank, and then the bank would pay the institution of higher learning. Now the government took it all over as of Obama, and now when you go in, they tie all your taxes and they tell you what you're going to get a loan for, and whatever we borrowed on our loan for OU didn't cover. OU raised their prices on tuition 25%.
Right.
When you
Well, it's
get a
gonna
loan
continue.
for a semester of paid
Okay.
for, it ought to cover the semester,
Well,
even if the prices go up.
until the
Once
public
you've been authorized.
stops caring about smiles and puppies, which is probably no time soon. We're going to have this because
Right.
government and government representatives, bureaucrats, politicians will always snooker the public and say, "Well, look at all these great benefits," and pretend as if there's no cost.
Yeah.
There's always a cost to your individual rights and liberty. They're always going to trample those for these programs, and then 2, they're going to trample your wallet. And this has happened all around the world. But government gets to create this problem, and these bureaucrats get to sell you the solution for the problem they've created. So then they exist in this oligarchy forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
Because they'll never fix the problems that they've created. Student loans and student loan debt and the cost of an education have increased many times the rate of inflation
Sure.
every year since one seminal point in history. When
Right.
was that? When was that?
1965.
When government started guaranteeing loans.
Yep.
If I've got a car repair shop and the federal government said it's a human right to get your car repaired, guess what I am charging? Guess what my rates are going to do if the government's guaranteeing that the check is written?
Yeah.
If you borrowed money to get an Oklahoma teaching license and you can't afford to pay your loan back, A, you either are not running your economics properly, or B, you invested in a worthless piece of paper that's not worth
Are
what
you
paid for it.
suggesting that government employees don't understand economics fully?
It's highly possible.
That's very disrespectful.
He's also explaining that they don't deserve to be teachers because they can't manage their own affairs.
Well,
You
and,
guys
and,
don't
and
want
high
to
school,
teach
high
anybody
school
about
graduates are graduating high school without the good sense to figure out the financials on this.
I love trade school. Guys are going to become electricians 6 months, 9 months, making $120,000, $140,000 with a zero debt. And then you have people going to private schools, get an
right.
education degree, $120,000 in debt. So
And
you
then
tell
you're
me.
beholden to the state your whole life, and they
Yeah.
freeze your salary, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys a couple more points on this because she really lit me up. What do you think about this Head Start program? Oh, Kendra Horn met with second grade Girl Scout troop and talked with student loan debt with the students and teachers at UCO.
7-year-olds?
It's,
But,
it's,
no,
it's,
UCO,
Tom,
no.
it's free
They're paying for
daycare.
it.
They're
She
calling
toured
it education.
Oklahoma
That's
Head
all.
Start. What is that?
It's daycare. It's a government-run
it's the
daycare.
state. They've now taken it all the way up that there's a state agency.
Be
that-
careful. My mom was an administrator.
Well,
for
it's
Head
a
Start.
federal program, actually.
Well, I know that they've got a federal as well, but it's not local anymore. federal and state.
So Kendra Horn is desperate for the children to be taken by the state.
You want to,
Yes.
yeah, they want to
Yes.
institutionalize every kid as quick as they can.
Now,
Remember, that's the communist agenda.
They
That's-
literally call it.
the Communist Manifesto.
That's the 1930s German plan.
Oh, go back to the 2020 plan that's literally in textbooks. It's called socialization of kids in public school. It's literally the phrase they use to talk about what happens when children are in school presently. And this is an argument I had professors argue that this is why we must mandate public schools.
What else you got,
Socialization.
Tom?
Yes.
Well, here's the real sinker of the boat for Kendra Horn. In 2018, she stood in solidarity with 50,000 teachers to walk out on everyone and
Yes, she
leave
did.
us hanging. That was absolutely horrible. She co-sponsored, do you know anything about the Teachers Are Leaders Act? And also the Reaching English Learners Act. Now, the Teachers Are Leaders Act, she's proud of this.
ESL.
Remember, these teachers are all for the children. So everything we do is for the children, except the Teachers Are Leaders Act is a bill that would create a professional development program for teachers. So, aren't they already professionally developed? What are you doing? Why are we hiring
It's just-
teachers that are not already professionally developed? And why are we spending more money on developing the teachers instead of teaching the children?
Tom, calm down. It's okay.
Oh,
Kendra Horn,
calm down. Just what I needed to hear.
Calm down, Tom. You're being hysterical.
I
Care about the
am.
kids.
I
It's
am hysterical.
Tom, this is all election year pandering. This whole
Just-
thing.
Oh,
Just
she's,
because-
she's desperate to get the teachers.
She's
back
gonna
on her
lose.
side.
Let me tell
this
you,
is desperation.
I will say this, Tom. Kendra Horn is being advised by some very astute political figures.
And they're still going to lose,
She
but they're
is.
trying to mitigate that loss. And
I'm-
don't worry about the fact that Kendra Horn and her party has created these problems. They've got the solution, Tom.
And what is it?
Just give them another chance. More
money. More money.
They just need more of your money and more of your freedom.
I'm
They'll
going
fix
to
it.
calm down as soon as I get this out of my system. The Reaching English Learners is going to teach. They're going to provide additional funding to train teachers to teach English as a second language because
That's
we
our
wanna
problem.
Encourage that, right? Now, record funding for Head Start and early education IDEA grants for children with disabilities was an investment with bipartisan government funding. It included $450 million boost to the Title I schools, and then another bill increased funding for a thing called Impact Aid. Where schools lose revenue. Tell me if you know about this one. Oldham, schools lose revenue due to a tax-exempt federal property like military installations or as a result of federal action to establish tribal lands.
They don't lose money. They have never had a right to that.
So,
No, he sounds like me.
exactly. So
Thank
this
you.
is another poorly written. I think this
I
is.
love it.
I actually think I know what she means, and I'll get off the story about Kendra Horn. But she wrote this sentence here, and I'm pretty sure I know what she means. But I still have to ask because it's poorly written by the English composition writing
That was the
skills
irony.
of Kendra Horn. Oklahoma school districts receive approximately $36 million in impact aid funding each year, more than any other state. The funding bill Congress enacted in December increased our total investment in impact aid by $38 million. Okay. Does she mean they increased it to $38 million, or they literally more than doubled it?
Tom, it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's right. Because they're
It's just numbers on a
saving
computer.
lives.
Yeah. By the way,
Oh, they are
If they
saving
can
lives.
save just one life, all the money in the
Yeah,
universe,
to-
all the
to-
freedom.
To that last point, I want to
Yes,
say
sir.
about what she said about losing tax money to these non-taxable entities.
Yes.
And I'm quoting Rush Limbaugh. By the way, I'm going to
Losing
go over
money.
right, child. God bless you, Rush.
Amen.
We're sorry to hear he's announced today advanced stage
cancer.
lung cancer. And
I believe
prayers
it's
are
not
with him and
malignant.
his
It's
family.
treatment.
I don't know.
I think
He's
that's right.
69.
So, but anyway, something Rush said back in the 90s. Mario Cuomo was the governor of New York, the old man, Cuomo.
Had a beautiful
And
voice.
they had this brilliant idea. They were going to take over Con Edison, because these utility rates are getting so sky high and
Right.
everything. Well, once they took them over, all of a sudden, like, we lost all that tax revenue we were getting from Con Edison. They're no longer paying
Whoops.
taxes because they're now a government entity.
I love it when leftists say, well,
That's
churches
right.
are costing us all this money
Yeah.
in tax exemption. The
Yeah.
money's not yours. It's like saying it's...
I want to leave us with a good point tonight.
We got
something.
we got a vaccine.
Okay, but let me interject this one. Something brilliant happened Friday.
What happened?
In global politics, over there in Europe, in the
Yeah, that was
EU,
good.
Great Britain finally said, that's it, we're out of here, deal or no deal. And I tell you, look, if you're not there, look at Facebook, 3D Politics Live. I put up Nigel Farage's final farewell.
His final
address.
farewell to the
It
EU.
was amazing. It was the biggest tweet. And because the European Union, which is not elected, right?
What?
Yeah, not
Oh, no,
elected.
That's
not
crazy.
elected whatsoever.
Yeah. And he says the people down in the front row who've been elected by nobody, but yet they're the ones dictating
Right.
to all these nations. And he's
Sounds
saying,
familiar.
Great Britain, United Kingdom, we want our sovereignty back.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I have fought for 20-some years.
27 years.
Yes, and this is it. This is my swan song. And he's talked about, he says, something's happening in Great Britain, something's happening in America, and he says, it's called populism. And he said, now, you may loathe populism, but I tell you a funny thing, it's becoming quite popular. What's that best tweet? And then he and all of his entourage pull out their little Union Jack flags,
That's
which
racist.
is banned. Nobody gets to have any flag in there.
Well, you're not
except-
supposed to, in the
St.
EU
George's flag
Parliament,
as well,
you
yeah.
can't show any national sovereignty.
Yes.
Because everybody has forsaken national sovereignty
Yeah.
within the EU.
Yeah.
And that
Beautiful.
was one of the things that when they were getting ready to form the EU, Britain held out. One of the big deals before Britain got in was that we get out if we ever want it back, because they wanted to keep their sovereignty. The other thing was that they got to keep their money.
Yeah.
And because they kept the pound going,
Yes.
and they didn't let it go, like the lira in Italy
Or
and
Turkey.
Greece.
Turkish lira.
and so forth, and they've just let it go, and it's all euro. They're stuck. They have to recreate everything from scratch.
Yeah.
That's
And
brutal.
and
And-
so
yeah.
it was great, but they all took out their flags, and that tweaked the speaker
And
off.
then they
Oh.
stood up and they all turned and walked. He says, if you're leaving, leave and take your flag with you. It was the most
And it has been very unfortunate since Friday. Blood has started to pour from the skies in England. The rivers have reversed direction. People are eating zoo animals.
Yeah.
And I believe the earth has opened up to
So-
swallow racists.
Yeah.
In
No,
rejection.
I'm
No,
hoping.
I think they fed it a Snickers and everything.
That was it.
And I would expect Trump to say something tomorrow night in the State of Union address. I think we need to make an overture with Great Britain to say, hey,
Yeah.
let's make a deal. Because, and then invite Canada and Mexico to say, hey, I invite you guys to make your own deal with them too.
I predict the UK
You know,
is going to get a very
in
generous
fact-
trade deal with the
In
United
fact,
States.
Nigel
Oh, it's
Farage
already
is-
in the works.
Nigel Farage says we're already got our deal with all of our Commonwealth, which is Australia, New Zealand, Canada. I guess they already do with
Canada.
Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so all that. So eventually we could see the European Union becoming less and less influential.
Right.
And it's more dominated now by Germany than anybody.
Poland wants to leave too, and they're having problems with nationalist leaders in Italy. And, this is a lot of people have predicted this. EU's probably
Yeah.
going to crumble, and then
Yeah.
what comes next will likely be much worse.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, Tom, we're going through a loop here because right before Ronald Reagan was elected, Margaret Thatcher was, and very much on the same principles of restored nationalism and that. And I remember him telling the story at their G7 where we were trying to, break through with the Soviet Union, and he had this socialist from Canada who happened to be named
Bernie?
Trudeau.
Oh my gosh.
Pierre Trudeau. And Trudeau was just harassing him, and finally, and I usually don't talk this way,
Oh,
but
no.
neither does Ronald Reagan. He said, damn it, Pierre, what do you want me to do? and Pierre
Full communism now.
Yeah, you know, and this is the
short
thing.
of an answer. He didn't-
We are actually kind of in this cycle. We're replaying the 80s.
Right.
We are.
When America
To a degree.
leads, good things happen in the world. You know, the Berlin Wall falls, the EU is free.
Yeah, but
Brexit,
I'm telling you,
the Grammys cleared up. You
It
know?
in both cases, it happened in England before it,
Yeah,
just
Brit-
by
Britain
months.
led
June
the-
of
led the
16,
charge.
they had the Brexit
Yeah.
vote. It only took them 4 years to
Yeah.
implement that.
Right.
Now, if it was some
And-
kind of
and-
socialist scheme, it would have taken
Right.
2 months to implement.
Well,
Yeah.
according to my timeline, the president of the United States was forcing them to do that by
Yeah.
withholding funds.
But you know,
Yeah,
I wanted. This is an exciting
really
thing, and I
timeline.
wanted just to talk about it.
And
And
Brexit
Nigel-
is big. Did you say 47 years? Isn't that how long it's been going? 47.
since they first joined the European Common Market, that was the
Right.
forerunner of it.
Right. The EU was 30 years in the making, 20 years, 20 good years, 30 to 40 years. Well, since World War II.
And I love
It
the
had been-
premise
it
of
had been,
it.
There'd been an idea for it, but
The premise is that the people
while
of
it's
Europe were
going.
so dysfunctional in their governments
Yeah.
that they had to form a massive globalist entity. Otherwise, they're going to continue murdering each other in mass.
well, it was weird because they started out to be a common market.
Right.
And then something happened, and all of a sudden, I think some people decided there's more money to be made if we make it more than just a common market and make it a union and have everybody give up their sovereignty. We get to run
Well,
it.
yeah, to protect your personal interests, give up your personal sovereignty.
I mean, destroy capitalism.
And the
destroy
rule
capitalism.
makers,
Right.
the
Destroy your
bureaucrats,
identity.
Yes.
and the Eurozone politicians increase in wealth exponentially in power.
Right, and this is the thing, and you just have to wonder, where are we at in the United States? Because government gets increasingly little bit by little encroaching on liberty, and eventually the people snap.
Well, this was well discussed in 1850 when Bastiat wrote his book, which is actually a treatise against socialism, but praised the United States, and we had two problems. One of which was slavery, and predicted the Civil War coming right about when it did, and then what he warned of, he was writing for the French, actually. He's French. He was writing from there, looking at us over here, and he warned of the bureaucratic state, that they would eat everyone out of house and home, because they don't deserve it. They're just leeches on society.
Right.
They go to work. They don't do anything.
Right.
So, hey, they have a job, so they're better than the homeless guy or something like that. But
Right.
they do less than the homeless
And
guy.
when
try
they
to,
make the
try to actually
rules-
do work.
To Tom's point earlier, when the bureaucrats make the rules, guess who those rules benefit? Whereas if you and I were deciding, the whole public, collectively 330 million people making our individual choices,
Right.
who do those decisions benefit?
Yeah, and
Exactly.
let me elaborate a little more on that. Senator Don Rubon used to be my senator here in my part of town. He's now been the clerk of the Florida legislature for several years. And he said a lot of laws are called laws of government convenience.
Right.
For instance, getting a driver's license. Why? To make it more convenient for the government to crack down if you abuse your driving.
That's why they're illegal.
Right, but they refer to them as laws of prior restraint. Is the nice,
That's nice.
packaging.
That's
they
what
put
the
on it.
Supreme Court
Yeah,
calls
yes.
when you're forbidden to do something that you're allowed to do.
Yeah, and yeah,
okay.
but this is a problem when the legislature, oh, it makes perfect sense to them, right? You know, and that's why your buddy Dean Davis and I were talking, texting back and forth, and I'm excited about what's coming with him because I think he's got a new passion for liberty after seeing all of these laws that took away his liberty that
Fifth
were
Amendment.
based on government convenience.
Correct.
You've got to breathe into this little machine because it makes my job easier.
They have to prove that he is guilty through due process.
Right.
He has to be brought before his accusers in a timely manner, and they have to prove that he's guilty.
Yeah.
He does not have to prove his guilt.
Yeah, and this was
Or he's
they
innocent.
pulled over and arrested for drunk driving, even though they don't have any evidence.
I mean, the police officer should have to test him by, if you taste like tequila,
You gotta take his blood and light it on fire. That's the scientific
no,
way.
no.
If it
And,
lights-
Isn't that song?
I will
Tastes
be
like
shocked if
tequila?
David doesn't back me up on that.
What's that?
They need a court order to take his blood,
Correct.
or to take his breath.
That would be the
or
Fourth Amendment.
anything
folks.
like
And he
that,
offered
yeah.
the blood, and they rejected it. So
He did
whose
offer
fault
that.
is it?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And again, they want what's convenient for them. And I was talking just last week to TJ Marty. Where were you, young man? We had a great show that night.
I love TJ.
Town hall we had.
Yeah.
But,
He's
you
a
know,
great guy.
and the whole issue was, hey, when I got my driver's license, I was told they're going to make you walk a straight line on the shoulder of the road to see if you're drunk or not. We didn't have breathalyzers, you know? And this is the thing, you know, because TJ, as a pharmacist, he says, hey, I know 0.08 in one guy doesn't deter or, you know, diminish his skills like 0.08 in the next guy. Everybody's different. So we just picked a number and said, we're going to apply it to everybody. That means, yes, you might not be a danger, but it would be too inconvenient for the government to actually make you walk a straight line or touch your nose.
The flaw inherent to all laws. They tend to paint with a very broad brush.
For their own convenience.
And do not consider individual circumstances to
Right.
the peril of all of society.
Yes.
Correct.
So I'm hoping for great things, and I'm going to back up Dean and his opportunities to lead the charge.
Great legislation, too.
Yeah.
I've gotten a chance to see some of the stuff he's working on.
Good.
It's really
Looking
exciting.
forward
Good.
Yeah.
We got a story from Oldham, Constitutional Grounds. The coronavirus, is it just another excuse for tyranny in the U.S.?
Well, that's why I drink Coors.
From his story out of Constitutional Grounds, in this case, questions remain about the origin of the coronavirus. Did it originate in animals and transfer to humans? A process called, is it zoonosis?
Zoonosis.
Zoonosis. I think I dated her in high school. Or was it the origin from the Wuhan National Biosafety Laboratory, which is where she said she worked? So, what's the angle on this excuse for tyranny with a virus?
Well, before we get started, I just have to take an aside here for a second, because when I was looking up for some of the information, there actually is a search that's gotten popular and shows up. It's for the Corona beer virus. It was started accidentally by some Indians in India. And it has caught on. So that just as a quick aside. But the question is this something that has there in Wuhan, in the city of Wuhan or just outside of the city, is a BSL or a biosafety lab, level 4, which is the top level. Everybody goes in there, wears hazmat suits, respirators, the whole 9 yards. Supposed to be the safest facility and things like that, but they will test on animals, and who knows how they're dealing with everything. This is China, and you know they kind of do things their own way. But the other problem is, the questions remain. Questions were called this was called into question years ago, over a dozen years ago, when they were proposing it, because the Chinese society is so layered and especially hierarchical with age, that there isn't a lot of communication between the ages, and there needs to be this real open communication so that everybody knows what's going on and nothing slips through the cracks. So the question is, did something get let out that shouldn't have gotten let out? Because they're doing all sorts of SARS, which coronavirus is a SARS, or a severe respiratory disease, and so it's a form of SARS. There's a number of SARS viruses. It's a family, and corona is they're calling it the novel or the novel coronavirus. I think it's novel coronavirus. And it makes me wonder, does the novelty aspect of it, is that, where's that coming from? But anyway,
probably
so
some beer representatives called and said, hey, could you slap another name in front of that?
Well, the thing is that China has really cracked down. They are literally...
They're good at cracking down. They're good at one thing.
And the question is, go to Constitutional Grounds, look at the article. Alex Jones, internet king of the conspiracy theory.
Sure.
The only thing is, if he's right, is it a theory? But the thing is that he was putting up and having a discussion about how it is like a prelude to the rest of the world picking up on their techniques as they try to repress forced vaccinations. And
well, I was promised everyone's going to die as a result of this. When is that going to happen, approximately?
Well,
right now?
I could not find the...
David, this is, I'm going to quote somebody, this is the 5th end of the world that I've survived now.
Yeah.
So,
Man, you are a good parent.
Oh, you've missed all the rest.
Yeah,
There's been a whole lot of others.
Are we
Yeah.
this gullible? Like every time it's like the swine flu's going to kill everyone, the avian flu's going to
Remember,
kill
every
everyone.
2 years there's a really big one.
I posted something here in the group. It's got 205 likes so far. It says, virus scares probably won't cost you your life, but will be used to take your liberty.
Yeah.
You know,
True story.
And here's the important thing.
That's the question.
Yeah, and David and I were talking in show prep tonight about this. This also coincides with the Chinese New Year, which is really unique. They're not big on celebrating Thanksgiving or Christmas, but New Year's in China, it's like 2 weeks off work. I mean, everything shuts down.
They don't even know
So
what a
what do
pilgrim
you
is.
do
They
with a
invented
billion
fireworks.
people with lots of spare time? How do you keep them in control? This is the Hong Kong rebellion's going on and everything else.
You crown with
How
tanks.
do you get them not to peaceably assemble? You scare them with viruses.
It's called
Just
education. I scared them
just
with
putting it
education,
out there.
right?
That's a
Alex,
conspiracy
right?
theory.
Alex, you'd be proud of me. Okay, but so
That can't be true.
you have that narrative there because some of the other things just so happen to coincide when the Chinese people were shutting everything down to celebrate, lots of time off, time to get together and organize events.
Time away from
Well-
the Foxconn suicide nets.
And here's part of the reason that I bring all of this up, because there's always a scare. I mean, we've just been through how many in the last couple months where they're trying to scare us about measles again, or they're trying to scare us about the flu. They're trying.
Stacking bodies.
I could not believe the number of people who are getting flu shots. Do you realize that there is not a single flu shot that has ever been tested, ever, before it's given? It's
Hold
always
on
been-
now. A bunch of people agree that they're a good idea. Therefore, they must be right. That's how logic and science work, David.
This virus is getting rushed into production actually faster than
David,
your flu
it doesn't
shot.
matter how long any of them take. They're made by science, and therefore they're good.
Right. If you've got a white lab coat, that makes you a scientist.
Shapiro was on the air today, and I just accidentally heard him comment a caller. He does the call-in or
That's
whatever.
the way I usually hear them.
And no, I'm a sycophant. But the caller was asking about vaccines, and Shapiro was saying that he is in favor of the communicable disease vaccines,
Not surprising.
not in favor of the behavioral oriented vaccines. Does that make
He
sense?
wants to mandate half of them or something, right?
What does
Yeah, I
he mean by
think so.
behavioral?
Well, things that are, I forget his example. Things
Well,
that,
the papilloma virus.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
Vaginal warts. That'd be sexually transmitted disease.
Right.
Well, that's
and-
a communicable disease.
But listen.
But it has to do with
He said
behavior.
it has to do with a certain
Okay, I
behavior
get-
puts
I get
you
what
at
you're
risk
saying.
for that.
Okay, right,
Things
right.
where you can also just stop that behavior, which brings me to say, you like wash your hands. You know,
yeah, I mean, so I thought he
that's
had
the
a-
best vaccine in the world is to wash your hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, ultimately, what gets me for Oklahoma is if this turns out to be a release from the safety lab, the biosafety lab, we are going to have a biosafety lab just like it, just north of us here in either Kansas or Missouri. And they are in the process of developing it, and it's going in. So we could have something. You look at the map of all of the worldwide contagion or the
Like the lab in Hawkins on
the
Stranger
cases,
Things.
They're all in Wuhan and the province there of Hubei, and so it makes you wonder why right there and only there is all of this going on, and then they're starting to spread out.
I don't know.
But we have that. But the other thing is, again, with the scares, there's always a scare, and it's always to get you and I to clamor to have government come up with something, and government make everybody get the shot.
Well, you can't get the government bucks unless you scare someone. It's not politically expedient.
But remember, there's always a profit motive behind that, because everybody's making money who's creating these things.
Sure.
Nobody is doing this out of the goodness of their heart and being philanthropic about it whatsoever.
Just to be clear, Tom, is Shapiro for mandated vaccines and the non-behavioral?
No, he was. Basically, he was saying for the because he says we have a shared interest.
Well, I don't know
That's
if he's
why
for
it does not
mandates.
surprise me.
I don't
That's
know.
why I do not like Ben Shapiro.
But is he for
let's
mandates
ask,
or just personal?
for mandates or for the vaccines?
Mandates is what Tom said.
I don't know his official position.
Let's
I just
get
was
that.
what he said.
And that was
Let's
on
find out.
today's
Sounded like
Side Bullet podcast.
We'll find out all
we'll have to
binge.
I'll
look
post
at
up
it.
the results on Facebook after I listen to it later tonight.
But ultimately, it comes down to neighbor demanding something from a neighbor, rather than allowing neighbors to just get along and do like they're doing in China. And now I'm seeing here, because I can tell that people are afraid here. People here are going around with a mask on because they're afraid to catch something.
Yeah, because you got parents who are concerned that their child is too vulnerable to get that vaccine, but it's safe for your kid enough for me to force your kid to get it.
Well, and
because it's not safe for my
None
kid.
of these people being scientists, not that even matters in terms of objective truth.
well, and now, rather than the boy in the bubble who needed to be protected from nature, we're going to somehow sanitize nature, and by everybody getting a shot, we're going to so sanitize nature that the bubble's not necessary. And if the bubble ever is, you're guilty for making that bubble
Why are
necessary.
we shutting down flights from China?
And this is the problem. There was a time when I could go to Mexico and drink the water. But because they've chlorinated our water for so long, my body's become so weak that I no longer can safely drink that.
He's telling the truth. He's quite frail.
No doubt about it.
Okay,
There it is.
so this is the problem with changing the bubble, flipping it around to where all of a sudden we're going to make nature sterile. And then we have people with no immunity when they get out in the real nature, like Mexico.
It's the tap water, guys. It's the tap water. It's the tap water, guys. It's the tap water.
Yeah.
Before we get out, we've got a really long show tonight, almost 2 hours. I got to save the date. Pretty exciting for me.
Yes.
February 19th, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. right here on 3D Politics Live. I'm getting the opportunity to interview Rex Lawhorn,
All right.
official gubernatorial candidate on the Libertarian ticket in 2018, and he and I are going to get a chance to discuss some of the stickier points of libertarianism. I really look
wait.
forward to that, and it's a great opportunity to have him make himself available to come for the interview. It's going to be just me and Rex right here for a full hour of discussion. It should be really exciting.
You got to promise you one thing, Tom. Read my comments on libertarianism.
Rex,
purity
wait a minute.
violence.
Yeah,
Dave's
and
got
Tom, this is the beginning of a new format that you're going to be working on. We'll see how it
try
goes.
to
Right?
interview more and more people.
The
with
long format
longer
interviews.
format. But this date, the main thing is we want to get Rex Lawhorn in here. It's going to happen. We just set it up with him in the last week or two.
Yeah.
February 19th. Save the date. It's a Wednesday night,
7?
7 p.m. right here at 3D Politics. I'm ready to close the show, gentlemen.
Yes.
Anything else?
Nope.
Thanks for sticking around. Tom McKay with 3D Politics, David Van, David Oldham, David D'Ambroso, and you can catch us again one more time next week, 7 p.m.
Good night.